Hey everyone, I am your astrologer Wonder Girl, helping you to live in tune with the natural cycles of the moon. This is your astrology horoscope for the full moon in Gemini, which occurs on Saturday, December 18th, 2021 at 11:34 p.m. Eastern Time or 8:34 p.m. Pacific Time. Now, what I think this full moon is really all about is about us getting more clear on what God is telling us about our lives right now and about what needs to be adjusted that is currently out of alignment in our lives with relationships and money for the better. Not only is it about us getting more clear on what the divine is telling us about our lives, but it's also about us as well, I think, taking some action, not big action, but some sort of small action here in order to start a series of events into process, if you will, in order to bring more things together over time, over the course of the next few weeks. All right. And that's it, because that's it. And I think that's all I have to say. Let's go ahead and let's hop right into it. In order to get started talking about this full moon, though, what I always like to do first is just place it on the chart so that you can see it when I'm referring to in this video and follow along with me. So let me do that now. In this chart, it's set for the full moon. We've got the sun here in Sagittarius, 27 degrees, making an opposition over here to the moon in Gemini at 27 degrees. When the sun opposes the moon, that is what is considered a full moon here. Okay. I should note as well that this is not an eclipse, at least not according to the astronomical sources that I usually look at. But I will say that I am going to interpret it as such because the moon is in the same sign here as the North Node. And to me, the North Node, right, is what brings eclipses. And because I just want to do it. This is my channel. This is my intuition. This is the way I interpret things. I'm going to interpret this as an eclipse, even though astronomically it's technically not that. So let's do it here. What is this about? Full moons. Full moons are all about stepping into something that we've been working towards really for quite some time. Not only are full moons about that, because it is when the moon is the furthest away from the sun, but it is also as well about us receiving illumination, insight, revelation, as well about something that we've been working on too, as well, with the full moon being when the moon is the brightest and the biggest in the sky as well. Okay, with this being an eclipse, in my opinion, now, this makes us very significant. We're stepping into something very, very significant that we have been working on for quite some time and receiving a very big revelation about something in our lives that is important to us. Okay, now what exactly are we stepping into or understanding, realizing in a big way at this full moon? Gemini. What is Gemini all about? Well, first thing I want to say here is that Gemini is a Mercury-ruled sign. Mercury is considered, according to what? Greek and Roman mythology of what astrology is based on, the messenger of the gods here, especially after a solar eclipse in Sagittarius, the sign of religion. So what is this full moon about? One of the many things that it's about us stepping more fully and getting more fully messages from God, from spirit, from the divine about our lives and about what's going on and about what's next from here on out. Not only is it bringing that, but Gemini, being a Mercury-ruled sign, typically does indicate good communication, especially too with it being a full moon about realizing something, about revelations. So not only is this full moon in Gemini about us receiving more messages from the gods, from the divine, about our lives and what's next more fully, but it's also about these messages, in my opinion, becoming more clear and becoming more easy to understand and to see for what it is that they actually are. Not only that, but Gemini is also the sign of facts and of information, not of knowledge and wisdom, that's Sagittarius, but of facts and information and of truth, really. The way things are. So not only is this full moon about us receiving more messages from God, the Spirit, the Divine, and actually understanding them more clearly and seeing them for what they are, but it's also us as a result of that seeing the truth about ourselves, the truth about our situation, the truth of the reality of where we are and what's happened and what we've created for ourselves from here on out that I think is supposed to be very helpful. Not only that, but I should also note too that I do consider Gemini, again, being the opposite sign of Sagittarius, to be about unlearning things we thought we knew to be true. So not only is this woman in Gemini about us getting more messages from God and from spirit here that are becoming more clear and easier to understand, that are revealing the truth to us about our situations and what it really is, but this full moon is also about us as a result of seeing the truth of our situations, letting go of anything that is not conducive to this truth and this reality that we're now seeing, and letting go of any old ideas and beliefs that we have learned that are not correct for us so that we can embrace something else from here on out. Okay. So that's a big deal there. What else is this about? Gemini is not emotional. It's an air sign. It's not a water sign. So I think that's another thing that's going on at this full moon too. Not only is Spirit telling us more things and it's becoming more clear and we're seeing the truth of our situation and the reality for what things actually are and letting go of a lot of old ideas of what we thought was true, which isn't actually true anymore. But it's also about us quitting the emotions. It's also about us not being emotional about these things that God is telling us anymore and just taking it straight for what it truly is and what it truly means, especially too with Gemini being a masculine sign, being air. Okay, not only that, but to me, Gemini is also about adaptability and flexibility, being a mutable sign, adjusting to things and making things more familiar. So not only, there's a lot of things going on here. Okay, not only is this full moon in Gemini about us hearing more messages from Spirit and actually understanding them for what they truly are, which is helping us to see the truth and the reality of our situations and to let go of anything that is not based on truth, that is not based on the reality of what's going on, and to do it in a less emotional way. But we're also at this full moon stepping into, we're also adapting more to these messages that Spirit is saying and to this truth and adjusting to it and making it more familiar as we move forward. Not only that, but Gemini to me is also like a little bit of a silly, playful, childlike sign, of course, being on this side of the zodiac and being like technically the last sign of spring. Which is like a very youthful time of new growth. So another thing that's going on here is that not only is all that going on this time period, but I think we're also being less serious, right? We're taking all these messages from Spirit that we're getting about our lives less seriously. We're just having fun with it. We're having fun with it and starting to loosen up and not be so stiff about everything that's gone on and not be so sad about it too. Not only that, but I should also note as well that Gemini is a sign of communication, not only communication from Spirit to us, but of communication with us to other people. So not only is this full moon about all those things I just mentioned, but it's also about us taking these messages that we've heard from Spirit and processed, and then communicating them outwardly with other people in our lives who may just be friends and people around, but who also may be directly involved and related to these things that Spirit is telling us that we need to do about our lives in order to move forward. Not only that, but Gemini, not only about us communicating, also is the sign of hands, rules our hands. All the signs of the zodiac rule a body part. Gemini rules the hands. So clearly I talk with my hands all the time. So I think another thing that's going on too is not only are we at this full moon hearing God's messages, understanding them better, adapting to them better, and stop not taking them so seriously, and then communicating about them with other people. But it's also us acting with our hands in reality on what God has told us. We are God's hands. It's us being God's hands to do what God has told us in order to maneuver things more in our lives towards this divine truth and this divine reality that we are now being shown here from here on out. Not only that, but if we want to consider Gemini as the twins, correlated to the twins are not similar. They're not the same. They're not the same person, but they do have certain similarities in some way in order to get along. So what that means to me is that another thing that's going on at this full moon is that we are also, I think, partnering with God and Spirit as a result of our voice in our hands in order to make things happen. And we are also partnering better with other people in our lives. Okay. Gemini is the only sign of the zodiac ruled by two people, the twins, Castor and Pollux. Okay. I know a lot of you like to think Libra and Scorpio are relationship signs, and they are relationship signs. But in my opinion, to make up my own rules during this video, on my full moon, I'm a Gemini. I got tons of planets in Gemini. We're the real relationship sign, okay? We're the only one ruled by two people and not a freaking object or a one person. So Gemini is a relationship sign. So not only is all that stuff just happening that I said in this video, but because we're hearing God more clearly and not being emotional about it and telling people stuff and putting things into action with our hands and partnering with God, I think we're also being more amicable with relationships. We're also working with people in a better way, where we can see more eye to eye with people and base our interactions with them on common ground instead of insane differences that are going to pull us apart here. Okay, and I think that's it. I think that's the last thing that I want to mention here about the full moon in Gemini. Now, before I move forward to give you more of the specifics about all those themes and how they're going to play out now over the course of the next few days and weeks, 40 days and 40 nights with the Venus retrograde. I want to go back in time for a minute before we go forward in order to give you the context of how we got here and of why this is now a thing that's coming up to be experienced and worked through at this time, okay? And to go back and give you the context of this time period, I am going to go back to, oh man, the last eclipse that occurred in Sagittarius, solar eclipse, last year this time. Okay, I'm going to bring it together, and hopefully this is going to be the last time I'm going to have to do this. I think it is, but hopefully this is it. So we're going to do that. I'm going to start back here, last solar eclipse in Sagittarius, which was last year, December of 2020. Okay. If you don't want to hear this, skip ahead. I'll put the chapters in the description box so you can navigate this video better, and the timestamps. But we're going to start here. What was that about? Well, that new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius in December of last year, in my opinion, was about us starting to step into a new, different, and better chapter in life, away from a lot of the hard times, baggage, trauma, and abuse of the past. Okay, I also believe that solar eclipse in December 2020, this new chapter, we may have been tricked into on an accident. We may have stumbled into it accidentally in the months prior, especially around that new moon in Libra, which was like October. I think it was October, September, October of 2020. Okay, that's what happened there. All right, I did like it. Because that happened, we then get to the next new moon in January of 2021 in Capricorn. What is that about? Well, Capricorn likes to manage and structure things. So in January of 2021, we tried to manage and structure the new and better chapter in life, away from the trauma and abuse of the past that we got tricked into in the months prior. However, this was not like my favorite new moon. It was not the most friendly. So even though in January of 2021, we did try to structure and maneuver and manage this new chapter in life better, I think we ran into roadblocks. What were those roadblocks? Well, with the aspects of that new moon at the time, I think those roadblocks were a lack of confidence that we had in ourselves, low self-esteem, self-sabotage. I think it was also feelings of victimization from all the things we had been through in the past. And I think it was also some addictions and things that maybe some of us had to old stuff that was not really good for us, that we needed to get rid of. That then leads me to the next new moon, which we had a month later here at the middle of Aquarius, February of 2021. What was that about? Well, Aquarius was really also not that friendly of a new moon either. So what was that about? That was about us still feeling stuck and still having more things bringing us down, preventing us from accessing a new chapter in life. What was still keeping us stuck? Well, this time around, it was an old identity that we were still attached to, that we couldn't let go of. And it was also actual things in our life, like relationships and money sources that we also didn't like, that were still attached to us and that were still around, that we hadn't quite cut out yet. Because that was the issue, I think around February of 2021, we realized we had to get a handle on this, and we had to cut out these people, cut out these things we didn't like, and work through a lot of these emotional issues that were preventing us from embracing the new chapter in life. Okay, and I do believe that we started to do that, and that by the next new moon, which is in Pisces in March of 2021, we started to get somewhere. In March of 2021, we started to feel more healed, to release a lot of these old bad things, and to feel more healed and to feel more at peace with what is now going on in this transition in our lives that is now taking place. That then leads me to the next new moon, which is going to be a month later, of course, the new moon in Aries, the first sign of the zodiac and the astrological new year here in April of 2021. What is that about? Well, because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, it's about new beginnings, new experiences. So in April of 2021, we actually started to feel now the new chapter in life that was promised in December of 2020 become more real, become more of a thing, actually start to begin now that we had worked through some of that baggage from the past still holding us down. Okay, that then leads to the next new moon happening a month later, May, in the middle of Taurus here of 2021. What is that about? Well, Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac. It's a fixed sign. It's about sustaining things that Aries started. So what happened in May of 2021 is that I think we tried to sustain the new chapter in life that now started to become more of a thing and make itself more known within our existence. Okay, I did like that, but even though I did like that, I do think that month we ran into roadblocks because around May of 2021, we had, I believe, a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius right here, while Mercury went retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So while we were trying to sustain some kind of new chapter in life, we ran into some kind of issue preventing us from really making it more of a thing. What was the issue? Well, with the Mercury retrograde in Gemini, I think it was something from the past that hadn't been communicated correctly, especially since February of 2021. Something with a person or with a job or with a thing we were trying to cut out of our lives that had not been communicated correctly that we needed to go back and communicate with in order to move on. Not only was it that, but I think it was also like a mindset thing too. There was something about our mindset that was also still stuck, and these like old hard experiences as well that were bringing us down, part of the issue. Okay, there. And I do believe that in June, the next month, June of 2021, at that new moon solar eclipse in Gemini, we did that. We recommunicated these things with these people that were still bringing us down. And we started to adjust our mindset in more of a way that it is that we need. And because we started to adjust our mindset in more of a way that we need, I also believe that in June 2021, we started to make this new chapter in life more familiar. That's also what Gemini is about, to make the new chapter in life more familiar and to adapt and adjust more to it with some of these other things being taken care of. There. And I do believe that happened. That then leads me to the next month, July of this year, 2021, the new moon in Cancer. What was that about? Well, Cancer is a lot about grounding ourselves and letting things take more permanent root and hold. And I think that's what happened in July of 2021, is that we then went a little bit slower on some things here in order to allow this new life that was becoming more familiar to take more hold and more permanent root within our lives in order to grow from here on out, which we did. Okay, that then leads me to the next new moon a month later here, August of 2021 in Leo. What is that about? Leo is about joy, happiness, love, fun, pleasure. So I think that in August 2021, we tried to pursue more things in life that would help us to love this new chapter and to make it more happy and to make it more fun now that it's becoming more of a real thing and becoming grounded. And I do believe that we did that. That then leads me to the next new moon a month later here in Virgo, which was middle of September 2021. What is that about? Virgo is a lot about our job, our daily routines, our habits. So I believe that in September of 2021, we tried to make these things that are going to make us happy in this new chapter in life. We tried to do these joyful things on a more routine, day-to-day, practical kind of way, day in and day out. So that they could be more with us. And I believe that we did try to do that in September, but I think we had issues. We had issues fully doing what makes us happy in this new chapter in life on the day-to-day. That's because Mercury went retrograde in Libra right around that time. What were those issues with us doing on the day-to-day what makes us happy? Well, I think part of it was still a mindset thing with Libra being an air sign. Our mindset was still stuck in old hard chapters in life. Not only do I think that it was still a mindset thing, but I also believe it was still a relationship thing. Something with relationships still wasn't right and where it needed to be. And I also think it had to do with our division of time and resources that was also not right too. That was the issue. And because that was holding us back, I think then in October of 2021 at that new moon in Libra, we then fixed those things. We then really focused on our mindset to fix that, our relationship to adjust those, and our division of time and resources in order to adjust that as well so that we can embrace more happiness in this new chapter in life and help it grow more. And I think we did that. And because we fixed a lot of these things, we then got to the next new moon, which was in Scorpio here in November of 2021. Scorpio is a lot about permanent change and transformation in the depths of our soul. So because we fixed a lot of the things keeping us from being happy in a new chapter in life in October, then in November, we start to feel totally transformed as individuals here and more fully ready to embrace a new chapter of life and to be happy in it and all of the things that it might bring and require of us from here on out. Not only at that new moon in Scorpio did we just start to feel more transformed to be in a new and different chapter of life and to enjoy it and to identify with it, but I think we also tried to make more moves with relationships and money in our external environment here in order to get more things with relationships and money that make us happy here to match this new chapter in life and this new and improved sense of self. And I do believe that we did that. But even though we started to do that, I believe we ran into some difficulties around that full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus also in November. What kind of difficulty did we run into? Well, I think all these changes to get more new things that are going to make us happy with relationships and money, I think it came on too fast, too strong, and overwhelmed us and got things very chaotic. And because it came on too fast, too strong, and it overwhelmed us more than what we actually were ready for, I think we realized we had to slow things way the fuck down, okay, so that we could calm down and become more sensible about our situations and get our head on straight. And I do believe that we were able to do that. And because we were able to slow our situations way down in order to get our head on straight, we then had the last new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius 2 weeks ago here in December of 2021 here. What was that about? That was about us now at that time getting huge, massive messages from God and messages from Spirit. Now that we had slowed our situations down enough and we're thinking sensibly about them. And it was us getting huge messages from God, Spirit, and our soul about our lives and about what to do next and about how to maneuver anything with relationships and money in our lives that's still outstanding, that still doesn't feel right, about how to maneuver it in a more divine way here in order to complete this new chapter of life and to more fully step into it. Okay, and I do believe that was very good to have God speaking these things over our lives. But even though it was very good, I think it was just very confusing. It was very confusing to us about what God is saying, because I think God was telling us a lot of things that are not what we originally thought God would tell us, or that were challenging a lot of our like little human ways of going about doing life. That was very difficult and creating a lot of mixed messages within ourselves, the divine, and within our environment with the people that we were working with, and possibly even some frustrations and some arguments. And because God was speaking to us and we were not hearing the messages correctly and misinterpreting them and doing a lot of weird things, now we get this full moon, which I think is an eclipse in Gemini, of which this video is for, which is about us finally actually hearing God. Finally actually hearing God for what God is saying, without our emotions getting in the way, without our old beliefs getting in the way, without our old sense of self getting in the way. It's us finally hearing God and what God wants from us to improve our lives, for the truth of it, for the truth of what it really is here. Not only is this about us finally hearing what God wants us to do here in order to rearrange our lives to be new and different and better and remade in a healthier way, but I think it's also us being less emotional about what God is saying and more willing to work with God, and now actually having the conversations with other people about what God is saying, who they're involved with, and doing the things with our hands in reality to maneuver things to be more divine here, and working with other people in a more amicable way here, and fair way, if you will, in order to finally bring some new chapter in life together and to move forward in a stronger way that's more aligned with our truth. Okay, and that's it. Because that's it, I'm now just going to repeat that one more time very quickly to help you get a better sense of this. So let me do that now. What do I think is the larger context of this full moon in Gemini? I think this full moon in Gemini is about us finally knowing deep in our soul, deep in our bones, deep in our intuition, with help from God, about what some new chapter in life is all about that we're stepping into, and about what needs to be done now in order to complete the new chapter in life, especially with relationships and money, in order to bring new things into our life and release old things that have been keeping us stuck, so that we can move on and so that I can stop talking about this theme, hopefully, after this point. Okay. And that's it. Because that's it, I'm now going to talk about the specific astrological aspects that are going on at this full moon and around this time, and go through them one by one. And I'm actually going to start with one that's not related to the full moon, even though the full moon is making some. I'm going to go here, Mercury. Mercury is in Chiron. Mercury is in Capricorn here, making a square to Chiron in Aries. Why do I want to go to this one first? Maybe because it's the ruler of the full moon, right? The full moon is in Gemini. Gemini is a Mercury ruled sign. Here's Mercury over here. So maybe that's why I want to do it. That's what we're going to look at. What is this about? Okay. Mercury is about two things that I'm associating with at the moment. It's about us hearing God more clearly for the truth of what God is saying in our spirit and our soul and our intuition. And it's also about us acting on what God is saying in reality through words, through communication, or through physical with our hands. That's what it's about. Okay. And the square is a bit hard here. It's a difficult aspect. And Chiron's a bit difficult too, having a lot to do with fears, triggers, and insecurities. So what does that mean to me? It means to me that at this full moon in Gemini, we are in fact hearing God more clearly about what God wants from us in order to freaking end an old chapter of life and get rid of old things that aren't meant for us and to bring new freaking things into our lives with relationships and money. God is freaking speaking to us and we are hearing the truth of it. But even though God is speaking to us and we are hearing the truth of it, sometimes the truth is still hard to hear. The truth is still hard to hear. It's still, for some of us, a little bit of a difficult pill to swallow here. It could be because God is telling us things we didn't want God to tell us. It could be because we've been lying to ourselves and hiding things from ourselves just this whole time. It could be for a lot of reasons why we could be feeling out of sorts here. But I think there is a part of us here that is definitely feeling a little bit challenged by what God is saying now that we're seeing it for the truth of it. Not only is there a part of us feeling a little challenged by still what God is saying to us now that we're seeing the truth, but I think there's also a part of us that's still a little challenged too about how we act on it. You know, Aries is a sign of action being correlated to Mars. I think we're also challenged by how to act on it. And I don't even know if it's because we don't know how to act. I think God is also telling us that, right? I mean, if God is telling us what needs to happen in our lives, I think God is also telling us how to get those things too. So I think we're also hurt as well about how to act on these things that God is telling us, not because we don't know how to act on them, but also because I don't know if we like how God is telling us to act on these things. Why? Why is this happening? Well, Chiron a lot of times has to do with swallowing your pride. It also has a lot to do with vulnerability, being vulnerable, being transparent, being see-through, letting people see the real you into your soul, especially with the Saturn and Aquarius over here. So I think there's a lot of that going on. Maybe just to repeat, sorry, I've said all that so fast. Maybe just to repeat is that what I think is going on at this full moon in Gemini is that God, Spirit, the Divine, is saying so much to us about our lives and our next steps and what is required of us in order for us to move things forward and how to do it. And it's good because God's speaking it and it's the truth and we're accepting it as the truth and as what God wants. But even though we are hearing it now more clearly, there is still a part of us that is hurt by what God is saying or by how God wants us to go get these things that God is telling us. Why are we hurt by what God is saying and how God is saying it? Because maybe it's not what we originally thought it would be, or because we realize we've been lying to ourselves this whole time and thought things were one way when they were really another. But I think we're also hurting too because God is going to tell us to do things in a way that's going to require us to be very vulnerable, very transparent, and to swallow our pride about a lot of things here that are quite hard. Okay. So I think that that's what's going on here. I think another reason why this is a bit difficult too is because of another alignment, Saturn. Saturn here is making a square to Uranus and Taurus, where it's been all this year. I think it's still going to make it one more time next year, but here it is again. Saturn and Uranus are big deals because they're outer planets, and outer planets do tend to indicate larger life themes and big things that go on in our life. So not only are we having a little bit of difficulty here with what's going on because we're finally hearing God and the truth of it, and it's not quite what we wanted to hear, and it's requiring us to swallow our pride to receive it and to act on it, but also because it feels very big. It feels very big, whatever God wants us to do, and it feels Saturn permanent. It feels very permanent, you know, like God's asking us to take like a step that we feel is big and permanent. Now, sorry, I need to clarify, is the step big itself? I think God is only asking you to do something little. I think God is only asking you to tell someone something, like to start a freaking conversation, you know, that's all God is asking of you, you know, but I think it just feels big. I think it just feels big here and it feels significant, and there's a sense of permanence about whatever we do for some reason, especially being a little bit scary, you know, as well. Because if God's going to tell us to do something, he's not going to tell us to do something that's going to be insignificant and that's going to go away tomorrow. Like if God's going to tell us to do something, he's going to tell us to do something freaking big he's going to tell us to do something that has impact, that's going to be significant. And I think that's also part of the issue here, really scaring us. Do we want to take the commitment? Do we want to take the risk? Do we want to make the big commitment? Or the commitment to do the little thing that feels big in order to do what God wants us to do, that is going to require us to swallow our pride that we're already kind of sensitive about, you know. Very hard. Not only, pretty hard. Not only that here, but the moon itself, the full moon in Gemini is also making a square to Neptune in Pisces here. And Neptune by square by hard aspect can bring a lot of confusion. It can bring a lot of emotions. It can bring a lot of overwhelm. It can bring a lot of sensitivity. And even with some of the Gemini Aquarius stuff, it can bring like some kind of nervousness or anxiousness and anxiety as well. So I think there's also some of that going on too. Why is that happening? Again, because God is telling us the truth of the situation, encouraging us to act on God's truth, to rearrange things in physical reality with relationships and money. And we're scared to do it. We're scared to do it because we're still hesitating to get on board with God's truth. We're afraid to put these things into action, to have really vulnerable conversations here. And we're afraid to take this commitment and make this step. And because we are afraid to do these things that we know we should do, that God wants for our highest good, we're now confused. Confused for no I don't want to be harsh, but you know how I can be. We're confused for no freaking reason. We're confused because we're making it confused. God is not being confusing. The Spirit is not being confusing. Our intuition is not being confusing. We're not confused because Spirit is being, we're confused because some of us, part of us deep down is still rejecting a little bit of the message here that Spirit is trying to get us to do and the way in which it needs to be done. And we're fighting against it. And that takes a lot of freaking energy. To fight against something that you know to be true and that God is saying, I mean, that takes a lot of freaking energy. That's very overwhelming and that's very exhausting. Not only is that exhausting because that takes a lot of freaking energy, but it's also very exhausting because it's not going to work. It's not going to work. When you fight against somebody else, maybe you can win. When you fight against what God and the divine wants for your life, you're guaranteed to lose. You're just going to lose. And so I think it's also really frustrating and exhausting because of that. We're fighting against, we're not doing what God wants us to do. We're still hesitating and it's futile. It's futile. And because it's futile, we're frustrated, we're confused, we're sad here. That can be quite hard. Another thing too, I should say, Venus is about to go retrograde after a day after this or so here in a conjunction with Pluto. I think that's also a lot of fear. I want to say that Pluto has a lot to do with fear and triggers. I think there's also a lot of fear too and a lot of triggers about what would happen if we actually did do what God wanted us to do. Like, what will they say? Like, if I do what God does and go back on something I told someone a few weeks and months ago, like, what are they going to say? Are they going to hate me? Are they going to do this? What about my job? Like, I think there's also a lot of fear of like how these things will be received if we were to do what it is that we were about to do as well. That to me is hard. Okay. But even though all of that is hard here, I do think we have some support now to overcome it. At the same time this is hard. I think we do have some support here to overcome still this confusion that still lingers a little bit from the past few weeks and months and years, but especially weeks and months. Why? Because at the same time, of this full moon, Neptune just recently went direct a week prior here. Not only that, but Chiron is going to go direct tomorrow, the day after this happens as well. And when planets go direct, this is very positive because they bring forward momentum in some areas of our life. Okay, what does Neptune bring forward momentum and trusting and surrendering to the divine, being very also spiritual, being naturally correlated to Jupiter, and where Jupiter's about to enter very soon, a week or two. So I think we have a lot of support, even though we're very frustrated and agitated still and hurt and scared. I think there's a lot of support here for us to say, you know what, God's ways are not my ways, and I'm going to trust in God above all else, and Spirit and the divine, and just do what the divine wants. I'm just going to do it. A lot of support for that, especially too with Gemini being unemotional and Gemini just being like, fuck it. God wants me to tell someone this shit with Gemini being ruled by Mercury, the messenger of the gods. God wants me to do some bullshit. Fine. Like, I'll just do what God wants me to do, and I'll suck it up, and I won't be emotional about it, and I'll say the damn thing. I think there's a lot of that energy going on here too. Not only that, but Chiron going direct is about healing in a lot of ways, being the planet of healing. And it is a lot about us being more open to being vulnerable. So even though, right, we're still very emotional about whatever spirit is telling us needs to happen in our lives and how it needs to happen and how it's going to occur and what's going to come of it, that we're sucking it up. Like we're just sucking it up this time period. And we're just saying, okay, well, God wants me to do it, so I guess I'm going to do it. If God tells you to do something, like, you better do it. I might as well just do it. And if I need to be transparent, and if I need to be vulnerable, and if I need to be honest about some of my wounds from the past and like things I've been going through, well, fuck that too. I'll just do it, I'll just do it and just say these things, right? So we can be done with this. So I can be done with these things I don't want, and so that God can stop pestering me, and so that I can be in peace, and move on and heal some of these old things from here on out. And with Mars in a conjunction with the South Node, and to do it, we just do it. We just say what needs to be said. We just do what needs to be done. And we take small actions based on what God has been prompting us to say what needs to be said and release old things from our lives and bring new things into it with relationships and to money. Okay. Which is good. But even though that's good, now I'm going to move you forward in time a little bit. But even though that's good, right? Even though we do that, I 100% think this time, now, this full moon in Gemini, we finally say, screw my fears, screw my insecurities, screw my bullshit. I'm going to do what God wants me to do. And I'm going to tell this person, I'm going to tell this job, I need to end the relationship. I need to begin the relationship. I made a mistake before. I wasn't thinking clearly before. I was hurting before. Like, we finally suck it up to do it. And I do think something good starts to happen here. Okay. Right after this occurs, because this to me happens very quickly. That all that stuff I just covered, it happens very quickly. The fears very quickly, the overcoming it very quickly, and the taking action, it all happens very quickly. So I do believe that we do it. And once we start to do the things that God wants us to do with whatever it is in our lives, I think then we start to receive the effects of what it is that we have done. And that's because of Venus. I want to go back to that, because right after this full moon in Gemini, Venus is going to start going retrograde here in Pluto, on top of Pluto in Capricorn. And Venus goes retrograde for about 40 days and 40 nights. And Venus is about receiving. It's the feminine principle. It's not about doing. It's about getting the results of what we've done, really, and attracting, magnetizing and attracting things to us and letting it happen naturally on its own. So what that means to me here is that once this time period, we conquer all these fears and all our own BS, and we start to do what God wants us to do and to initiate some small things that are going to affect big change. Once we do that, things start to shake loose. Things start to shift within our relationships and money based on our actions in order to actually rearrange and reorganize themselves naturally, based on what we've already done this whole freaking year, and based on help from the divine now in order to work things through, that I really, really do like. Okay. I know that's a little bit of a weird way to interpret Venus retrograde on top of Pluto, but I do like it, okay? But even though I do like that, I do like these events actually finally helping us to create good things in our lives that God wants to help us with, that we're going to receive over the course of the next 40 days and 40 nights while Venus goes retrograde. I do think there could still be some anxiety here around this. Why do I think there could be some anxiety here around this? Well, for one, it's a planet going retrograde on top of Pluto, okay? And because the moon is in a quincunx, the full moon is in a quincunx to that. So even though this full moon, we do finally suck it up and do what God wants us to do and swallow the pride to make it happen and to move forward on it. And even though these things we do that God wants us to do does start to shift things in our lives naturally, more easily than it has been over the course of the past few months to receive the benefits of all our hard work, I think there is still some issues. And I think part of the issue here is that we're still scared of how things are going to turn out now that we've initiated some actions. I think another challenge too is not only are we scared, like how is this going to play out? What are they going to say? What are they going to do? What are things going to be like now after we've already had an initial conversation? But I think there's also as well some impatience. Venus goes retrograde, again, 40 days and 40 nights, which means that the results of what we've done this week or at this full moon aren't going to be revealed tomorrow. They're going to need like a month and a half at least in order for them to really be seen fully for what they really are. So not only is this alignment about us being scared after we take the leap to do the things that God wants, but it's also about us still being a little bit frustrated because the full results of what the end result is going to look like still hasn't fully come into play yet. And we still need to give it another month and a half to move forward as well, which can make us, again, quite anxious and a little bit emotional here. And I think I'm going to give you the same message as how to deal with the after effects as how to deal with the beforehand. Okay, with the other stuff. And the way that I said to deal with the beforehand was to just surrender and trust God anyways and to do what God wants. And that's the same message. After we initiate these things that God wants us to do and start to receive the results of them, we need to not be scared. We need to not be frustrated or to manage our emotions around that the best that we can and to simply trust that God will be with us and that all will be revealed in time by the end of Venus retrograde a month and a half from now, although I think you're going to start to see things shape up beforehand. Okay, not only that, but with the moon in Gemini, again, the full moon is in Gemini here, there's a need also to not only just trust God and whatever God wants, but to stop taking it so seriously and to just have fun with the process, to stop taking it so freaking seriously and to just roll with the punches. Gemini is a mutable sign. It's flexible. It's not emotional. Everything's okay. Gemini says we don't have to have a 50-step plan. We don't have to know if we're going to get married tomorrow. We don't have to know if we're going to break up tomorrow. Like, let's just figure this out day by day. Let's just have fun with it, see where it goes, shoot the shit, and that's fine. And I think that's the attitude that we need to have. And I think that's the attitude that we naturally start to have as well as time moves forward. Which I think then is very, very positive. Not to give us the final result. I don't think we're still going to know how these actions that God wants us to do are going to play out quite yet, but to help make the process to getting the final result, which is probably going to come next year sometime. February, March, April, the new moon in Aries, probably going to happen then sometime. It just makes the process until then much easier, which is important here. And I think is going to help. This new perspective is going to help us going slower and us having more fun with the process is going to help us be at ease as all this occurs. And not only is that new approach going to help us be at ease as all this occurs, but with the moon in Gemini making a trine to Jupiter and Aquarius, I think it's going to give us a drastically new emotional perspective, like an emotional personal makeover. It's going to give us an entirely new emotional perspective on life, and one that really helps us to heal a lot of old pain from the past. That has been in trauma and abuse that has been keeping us down for quite some time, and to feel remade by the end of all this as a new person. Okay. It's going to help us do that. It's the playfulness and it's the surrender to the higher power that's going to help all of that come together. Okay. And that's it. Because that's it. I'm now just going to repeat all of that one more time without the astrological jargon so that you can get a better sense of what I think is going on here. So let me do that now. What I think is going on at this full moon in Gemini is that we are receiving more messages here from spirit and the divine and our intuition about our lives and our next steps and what's truly meant for us, and about how to get all of those things that are very, very positive. But even though we are getting a lot of messages from the divine at this time, I think, I think we're still, I should also note, and we're hearing the divine more clearly. But even though we are getting a lot of the messages from the divine at this time and hearing the divine more clearly, I think there is a part of us that is still afraid of what the divine is saying, or not liking what the divine is saying, or still startled by what the divine is saying too. Not only is there a part of us that doesn't like what the divine is saying, or startled by it, or uncertain about it, but I also think there's another part of us that's actually afraid to act on what the divine is saying as well. And we're afraid to act on it because I think it may require us to be more vulnerable here about things as we move forward, to swallow some of our pride as well here, and to be patient with other people. Okay, not only are we afraid to not only are we kind of still grappling with what God is saying and afraid to act on it, but I think that it also feels very big. It feels very, very big, even though I think it's actually kind of small, and it feels a bit scary and significant. That's also hard, bringing a lot of confusion around something that there doesn't need to be confusion around. And instead of us wallowing in this confusion, like maybe we were 2 weeks ago at the last new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius, I think at this full moon, we learned to get a handle on that. We learned to quit the emotions, to quit feeling sorry for ourselves, to quit fighting with God here, and to release a lot of our detachments, and to just surrender to what God wants and the divine wants, and to just do it, to just communicate about what God is telling us, and just do with relationships and money whatever God wants from us in order to move forward, and to do it in a more flexible, carefree, more amicable, more lighthearted kind of way as we move on. And I think us finally doing what God wants us to be doing here then helps. It then helps, I think, to bring some healing here into our lives, and to start to readjust things for the better in our lives, to overcome old chapters and to move into a new chapter of life, and to receive the benefits, the good things of our actions at this time, and really for the past few months more fully, and to have those complete. This is very good. But even though we are receiving finally the new chapter in life and the benefits of it, I still think we have some anxiety around whatever it is that we're receiving. I think we still have some anxiety around it because I think we're still afraid about whatever it is and about how it's going to work out. And I think because it's also taken its damn time still, or feels like it's taken its damn time still as things come together over the course of the next few weeks. And because we're still kind of challenged by the things that God is saying that we've acted on, and by how long it's going to take, we need to revert back to the earlier advice and continue to surrender to God, be patient, and to have fun with the freaking process. And the more we can surrender to God in spirit and have fun with the process, the more and more things are actually going to work out in our favor without us having to lift a damn finger. And the more personal healing we're going to do to overcome an old chapter in life and be remade and reborn as really new people who aren't so dragged down by all of these pains of the past. Okay, and that's it. If there's anything I have to say here, like in a different way, since that was kind of long, about this full moon in Gemini, it's really about us finally acting on what God wants us to do, to either end something with relationships and money in our life, or to get something and to bring it into our lives with relationships and money, even if we're still uncertain of what God is saying or uncomfortable with it. And even if we're going to have to swallow some of our pride in order to bring things together. Okay. That's what this is about. Not only is this full moon about that, but it's also about us having fun with the process, learning to have fun with the process and to not take it so seriously as we work these things out and as we wait for the results of them to be seen from here on out as we move forward. Okay. That's really what it's about. You know, I think the past few months and years, we've been too stiff. I'm with the Pluto and Capricorn and stuff, Venus going retrograde there. I think for the past few months and years, we've been too stiff. We've been too stiff about what is in our lives and what isn't in our lives, you know. And I think we've had a lot of reasons to be too stiff about what is in our lives and what isn't in our lives, because I think a lot of us have been screwed over by a lot of people. And I think a lot of us have had like a lot of bad experiences happen in the past. So I think there's been a reason for us to be really stiff prior to this point. But I think God is saying, now I'm doing a new thing. You know, God is saying, now I'm doing a new new thing in your life, and I'm doing a better thing in your life, and you're going into a better chapter in life where you aren't going to be so hurt and so challenged and so taken advantage of. And because now I'm doing a new thing, and now is a new chapter in life, you need to get with it. You need to start acting in accordance with a new way of life, which is fun, which is playful, which is less emotional, which is whatever, which is just whatever, whenever you want to do it, that just does whatever in order to move forward, because that's going to help bring more things together. It's going to heal a lot of this stuff from the past, and it's what's going to make the new chapter better. Because a lot of us have been really stiff in the old chapter of our life, stiff with people, cut off with people, because we've been really stiff with people in an old chapter of our life, and just in general, with like very firm boundaries and walls up and things like that. I think also in the old way of doing things, we ignored a huge part of like our truth, of our soul, of what was authentic to us, especially with Saturn in Aquarius. And so I think that's another part of it. God is saying, the divine is saying, look, you needed to be tough with people and places and things in your life over the course of the past few years, because they were assholes and they were taking advantage of you. A lot of people were, and you needed to protect yourself from these things. But God is also saying, but you being stiff with people over the course of the past few years has now become a roadblock. You being stiff with people over the course and just things in your life has now become a roadblock, because you being stiff with people has created an internal emotional response in which you ignore all of your true heart, all of your true feelings, and God is saying, now I'm doing a new thing. Quit with the stiff boundaries, quit thinking everything's going to be an issue, and start to actually listen to what your heart actually wants for once. Follow your freaking heart for once. Jesus. Okay. Follow your heart for once, because sorry, I'm like getting all worked up here. I'm in a mood. I'm just going to say it. I'm in a mood when I'm filming this video. This full moon is right on my Chiron. I'm in a mood. So, and this is annoying. So I think that's what God is saying here. In order for you to come into a new chapter in life, you got to stop being so stiff and putting boundaries and barriers and walls up, because you putting the stiff boundaries, barriers, and walls up that you've been putting up for so long is going to create the same situations that you've had in the past. And the same situations that you've had in the past were not fulfilling to you or not based on your heart. So stop doing that and learn a different way and have fun with the process, because you're going to like it anyways. Like you're going to like it anyways, and it's going to be better. Okay. Especially too, with the Venus retrograde, right? Like that's the thing. Venus is the feminine principle about receiving. Mars is the masculine principle about acting, doing things here. And when Venus goes retrograde, in some ways it goes retrograde to catch up to Mars. And Venus and Mars are going to make another conjunction in February, right? February, where they're going to come together. And I like it when Venus and Mars are together, having a lot of chemistry. That's a lot of like sexual, physical chemistry, that comes here when you get these two characters involved. And so I think that that's another thing that's going on here, is that like God is saying, you have to learn a different way here of going about life, and one that's more open to easier times. Venus is about ease, receiving things. It's more open to an easier time of life, receiving, having fun, letting things be simple and easy and beautiful, because that is actually going to be the thing that's going to do the magic, that's going to bring all this stuff together from here on out in the ways that you need February and onwards. Okay, and it's going to help us find our place in a new chapter in life and stop feeling so weird in it. Now, your card for this time period is the King of Swords reversed. What do we have at the bottom of the deck? The Two of Pentacles upright. The Kings are a masculine energy. When they're reversed, to me, I usually think of it as like an unhealthy masculine energy. The King, which to me comes into being too harsh, being too tough, being too closed off, too closed down, not being open to listen to other people and ideas and perspectives. And I think that's what the card is saying here at this full moon in Gemini. A lot of us are being too closed off, and that's causing a lot of your problems. You need to be more open to receiving messages from the divine, to receiving whatever God wants to surprise you with, to receiving whatever other people want to surprise you with from here on out, and to not be so strict here with your mindset and with your approach. There's also a need too to be a little bit, more flexible and more sensitive as well. We also have the Two of Pentacles here upright, which to me is about balance too. So not only is there a need to stop being so rigid and so tough and trying to control situations, but not only is there a need to stop that and to be more flexible, but to be more balanced too. And I think they go hand in hand. When you are more flexible and when you are more open, right, it's easier for you to weigh out options and to see the truth of things and to work with things better. So I think that's also a need too. We also need to be more balanced and to get more things here in the right perspective or in a better perspective here as well. In order to kind of move things forward. Okay. I also should note too that the pentacles to me are about stability, do kind of correlate to Taurus, where we just had a full moon lunar eclipse. And so this also says to me too that by us actually letting go of control and being more flexible and weighing things out more intellectually, by gathering a bunch of different information with the Gemini influence, I think it's actually going to help us to feel better, to feel more stable, to feel more secure, to feel more together here instead of feeling so crazy like we have been before, and to make better decisions. The twos to me are also about decisions from here on out. We also have the Two of Swords at the bottom of the deck, which to me is another decision card, except can indicate difficulty with decisions. So another thing too that I want to note is not only with these cards do we need to let go of controlling and forcing things and rigidity and be more flexible and more adaptable and more open as we weigh out options in order to bring more stability to our lives and make better decisions, but that when we do make decisions to act on things from a different perspective, we don't have to be 100%. You don't have to be 100. You don't have to understand what spirit and God wants from you 100% in order to do what God and spirit and your soul and your intuition want. You just have to be a little bit sure and to go with it. So I think that's another thing too. Stop being so rigid and go with the flow here on what needs to be done. This too, to me, also has something to say about logic versus intuition. I think some of you are relying too much on logic and not on your intuition. And there's a need to trust your intuition, especially with Venus, Jupiter about to enter Pisces too. Some of you are hesitating to do what spirit wants you to do at this time, not only because you're too strict and too rigid and trying to control situations and aren't airing things out in a lot of ways and weighing things out properly and getting them in the right perspective, but also because you're relying too much on logic. You're logically thinking, well, this doesn't make sense. If I tell this person this, then it doesn't make sense that they would want this with me if this already happened, and it's like, stop going by logic. If you're going by logic, it's going to lead you astray. You have to go by intuition at this time, and you have to trust that even if you're only 50% sure on what your intuition is saying, you have to kind of go on an inkling in order to bring things together. Okay. So that's what I'm going to say there. Man, look at that. The Two of Cups upright. Relationships, right? Gemini is a freaking relationship sign, in my opinion. Convince me otherwise. Two of Cups is a relationship card. So I also want to say that by you opening up, being more flexible, more adaptable, changing your perspective on a lot of things, weighing things out here, stop trying to control and listening to your intuition over your logic, I think it's really going to help. It's really going to help relationships get more on board, bring more fulfillment into your life, and have people start to work together in some kind of amicable way to resolve something instead of, kind of be fighting against each other here. Okay, and that's it. I'm going to say, while I was doing that, I also realized that I didn't go into your inside degree. So I normally do that first, but I'm going to do that now really quickly. As well. So let me hop into that. This full moon, so 27 degrees Gemini. So I've got that degree up here on the screen. The inside degree is not written by me. It's written by another person named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled these degrees from spirit. Okay, I like 27 degrees the best, so that's what I like 28 degrees the best. So that's what we're going to look at. Fabulous inward visualizing gifts and streams, picturing the flux of life with extraordinary acuity of fluent perception. Witnessing the rapt fascination, how everything moves, changes, and stays the same. Granted a golden eye for phenomena and the rapid fire streaming through of images and impressions. What does this mean to me? It indicates to me that we do, somewhere in the middle of this full moon in Gemini, see things clearly, see what God is saying clearly, see what the truth of our life and our situations and what hasn't been working. We see that clarity clearly with extraordinary acuity of fluent perception. What a ridiculous way to say something very simple here, but poetic, but very poetic. And this is us being very fascinated with it. You know, Gemini is very curious. This is us being very fascinated by everything going on. Okay. This is very good. Getting very clear on a lot more clear on what God is saying of us as we move forward. But even though it's us getting a lot more clear on what God is saying to us at this time and spirit and intuition wants for us, this is us having a lot of difficulty in communicating and sharing what God wants us to say and do with other people, because words just can't express everything we've been through and everything we've done. And we have to find a physical language in order to transmit this stuff that God is saying, you know, and in order to share these gifts and these revelations really that God has with us in order to move on. So what that means to me, I guess, just to sum that up, is that we do during this time period realize what God wants us to do and how God wants us to do it. But even though we realize it, we're still afraid to act on these things that God wants, because it's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about when what's been transpiring inside us has been such a deep personal and emotional process. And we're going to have to learn to, you know, to end you on another note, you can't really tell a Gemini to shut up, right? You can't. Geminis love to talk, and they talk about anything and everything, even if it's silly. And so I think that that's the parting message that I'll leave you on here that I get from this inside degree, is that it's saying God wants you to express something in your life, to tell someone, to correct something here, and you got to talk about it, even if it's difficult to do. You know, you got to just keep trying to talk about it, keep trying to express it, keep trying to show other people, especially if you want to end or begin something, what's been going on here in order to maneuver things, because that's the only way. And because if you keep at it, it's going to work in order to move forward, move us all forward into some different chapter of life. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. If you like this video, please like it on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends, and I will talk to you on the next one. I hope you all have a Merry Christmas.